Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, and the Shark. Today is our 137th episode, and we're discussing the 1994/95 Dinosaurs episode, Earl and Pearl. So, let's get things started.
We're gonna need another Timmy!
That is probably one of the bigger catchphrases of the show, the other one, of course, being, "Not the mama!" But we talked about that one last time.
Yeah, I did that one today, but this one felt more fitting.
So definitely did. So yeah, Dinosaurs is a very, very popular sitcom in the 90s that basically, while not created by Jim Henson, was basically formed by Jim Henson in that way. And it's basically All in the Family, but with animatronic dinosaurs, which is way, way, way better than it sounds. Listen to this way. That probably made the show sound really lame, but it actually really does work out.
Yes.
And that's interesting is they even got Sally Struthers, who played the daughter in All in the Family, to basically reprise her role as the daughter of the Sinclairs, which really clever bit of casting right there. So this episode actually was one of the quote-unquote lost episodes. What happened is that the network aired the infamous finale a little bit too early, meaning that they actually had a backlog of episodes that they forgot to air on television. What happened is they had to re-air them in syndication a year or so later, and some of those things is very interesting because it's like the dinosaur finale, as we'll talk about later on in the episode, is a very definite finale, let's say. To have episodes come out after it, it just feels so weird. It'd be like if The Sopranos, they were like, oops, we forgot to air episodes after the finale. Here you go. And it's like, it feels so weird because the show's over. And yet there's more adventures of it like that take place before. It's not that big of a deal, but it is kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, imagine something like Superman, the animated series, doing something like that. Or, hell, even the Zeta Project. I mean, yeah, it still ended on a cliffhanger, but just imagine what could have been.
This episode is from the final season, and it is a very, very good one. Like I say, pretty much all the episodes were good. There are very few bad episodes, I'd say, of this show. Since the Jim Henson Creature Workshop worked in this show, it stands the reason that the animatronics and puppetry on this show is amazing. This looks incredible. This show is 30 years old. It has not aged a day. I don't think it's aged a second. You could make this show today. It would look exactly the same, and it would be phenomenal, you know?
Technically, they did with Disney Plus's interview things with that alien host and whatever, but yeah.
This episode itself begins with Ask Mr. Lizard, as Angron just said a little while ago. Basically, it was a running gag throughout the show of a science educational show where the young assistant would inevitably get very injured. Of course, Mr. Lizard would say, "We're going to need another Timmy," which again became kind of a catchphrase for the show as a whole. Today's lesson turns out to be on about thermodynamics, with them happening to have a live volcano in the studio. And I just love the level of absurdity like that on this show, you know?
Yeah.
Baby Sinclair, of course, is the one who gets to say before it actually happens. Mr. Lizard says that Timmy has to wear safety goggles. Earl, voiced by Stuart Pankin, complains about this, saying that parental groups must have gotten to the show as Fran, voiced by Jessica Walter, who also was in Play Misty for Me and Arrested Development. And, of course, Archer. And it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, okay. You know, in between being one of the greatest actresses of her generation, she voiced an animatronic dinosaur. And she also did a really good job there. Oh, go ahead, Math.
I still love that after playing a dinosaur in this show, she then went on to Arrested Development to play a different kind of dinosaur.
Yeah.
Nice.
We also covered her a while back, and while she's not always on the straight and narrow, she is basically the moral center of the family, which, yeah, it definitely shows here. That won't stop us from getting another Timmy.
Like Angron said, we did do Dinosaur way early on in the podcast, but it was so early on in the lifespan of the show that I want to kind of use this episode to go into more of a deep dive of the show as a whole. The door rings as Earl tells Fran to go open it. On the show, Timmy ends up looking into the volcano, wondering when it's going to erupt. Mr. Lizard says that it could take time, but that they have a way of speeding it up. He then flips a switch, which causes the volcano to erupt and decapitate the kid. And I love this. This is a family sitcom. You know, families and kids watch it, and let's open an episode with a kid getting decapitated. Why not, you know?
Yeah, the Googles did nothing.
And the thing that's funny about that is this predates that episode, believe it or not. Did The Simpsons take it?
Yeah. Also, I think this might be the most brutal thing that's ever happened to a Timmy on this show. I'm sure there are other examples to prove me wrong, but an actual kid getting his head not only decapitated and the stump cauterized might be one of the darkest things that ever happened on this show. in this show in particular. Anyways, go ahead, Math.
There are very few phrases that sum up the 90s quite like, let's open the show with a kid getting decapitated.
Yeah.
Fran says, she says there's someone at the door, as Earl says he's busy having quality time with his TV. When Baby objects to this, he begrudgingly says, and the kid. Fran says that it is his sister Pearl, as Earl refuses to believe that it is her, going so far as to say he forgot he had a sister in anger. Pearl arrives as she's wearing basically a country western outfit. She's voiced by Susan Norfleet, who was a popular comedian of the time who had kind of a country singer persona, shall we say.
Yep.
In a cute joke, she notes how fat Earl has gotten, despite them looking pretty much exactly the same. We then get the opening title sequence. It actually aired a lot later than I thought it did. Like, I wonder if it was, like, rearranged or something like that, because it didn't have to happen this late in the show, but regardless, it's still a great opening title sequence. It has, of course, the classic line, "Honey, I'm home," followed by, of course, all the wacky dinosaur antics. And yeah, it's a great title sequence, and the theme song is really catchy, too.
Yep.
I think the opening arriving late might have something to do with this episode being one of the lost ones. Like, they didn't have like planned when it was going to be, and it was like added whenever you can, even if it's a little bit later than usual.
Indeed. First of all, on that note, a few of the later episodes in this season did, in fact, do that sort of thing where it started out with a snippet of the episode, starting the inciting incident and all that stuff, and then it would just have the theme happen. Like a few other shows, like What's New Scooby-Doo, I can name off the top of my head as an example. And second of all...
Malcolm in the Middle.
True. Yeah, if Maggie were Anthro and the sort of character that Pearl was, or at the very least the sort of position that Pearl was, she would absolutely wear an outfit like that. Let's be fair.
After the opening title sequence, Fran asks Earl if he's going to say hello to her. Earl notes that he's not sure if it could be her, saying that they haven't met in 15 years and that she could be an imposter. Of course, that's ridiculous. There's no way she could fit in an air vent.
Yep.
She's there to meet her new nephew, then greets Baby Sinclair, who asks who she is. She tells him she's his Aunt Pearl and gives him a gift. Earl berates her that she cannot buy a child's love with a cheap toy after all the years of neglect. I love how immediately after, Baby calls Pearl Auntie Pearl and says how much he loves her. Which, again, really great moment there.
Baby Sinclair takes every moment to fight his father, whether for kicks or for intentional purposes. And here, it's for kick. He is an absolute little shit. Let's be fair.
Let's see, Shark, you were saying?
Kids will be kids. You just give them a toy and they will forgive or forget anything.
Earl then quickly says he is glad there was a reunion and for them to meet in another 15 years. Fran tells Earl to come into the living room to talk about something, and when he says there's nothing to discuss, she demands that he goes in there. When he leaves, Pearl tells Baby that she wishes he wasn't so mad at her. Baby suggests to give Earl a toy, but Pearl notes it'll take a lot more than that to fix things up. Baby is shocked at toys not being able to fix everything before Robbie and Charlene arrive. Pearl recognizes them and tells them to give her a hug. Robbie asks who she is, as Charlene says they cannot talk to strangers, and Robbie adding, "Yeah, there was an assembly of it at school and everything." Which again, the writing on this show is so sharp. It is amazing. Like, no one talks about this show, you know? It is like razor sharp wit, you know?
So I love the sort of meta running joke in this, that no one recognizes that Pearl is Earl's sister, considering they use the same animatronic for Pearl that they use for Earl. It's one of the duplicates that they have, and it just looks like Earl in drag.
Yeah, I know. That basically sums up Pearl in general. She's just Earl in drag. In country drag, even.
Nice.
Like to see her on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Pearl introduces herself as Robbie and Charlene don't realize who she is. After a while, Charlene asks when Pearl got out of prison, as she's surprised to hear that. Charlene then adds that Earl said that his sister was either dead or in prison. Pearl remarks that your dad's got some imagination, with Charlene's response of basically a flat, not really, being a really good delivered one, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
Robbie notices her guitar as Pearl says that's why she's here, to perform at the local bars. Charlene's surprised that she is a singer, asking if she is related to Earl. Pearl asks if they can see the family resemblance, to which they say not really. Again, a really good joke as we just described earlier. Earl and Fran reappear as Fran tells Pearl that Earl has something to say to her. I love how immediately after, Earl just starts yelling to get out of his house, but Fran then elbows him in the chest.
Yeah.
Earl then unconvincingly says about how he told his kids to always respect other members of the family. When Robbie says that he never said such a thing, Earl yells at him to shut up while he's talking. He then unconvincingly says that he doesn't want to set a bad example and lets her stay, saying it quickly. Robbie and Charlene chuckle at this as Pearl all invites him to their show. Robbie and Charlene are excited as Earl yells that she wants to take them to, quote, a honky-tonk bar full of barflies and floozies, and says that they cannot go because it's a school night. So, basically they're going to go to the dinosaur equivalent of the salty spittoon, apparently.
Indeed.
Nice.
Pearl asks if they can break the rules for one night. This, of course, enrages Earl as he yells that's her philosophy on life, to follow your dreams and break the rules. And I am just amazed at how good the puppetry is here, because one thing to note, look at Earl's face, how it quivers with rage while he's yelling. It is just so incredible to see this. Like, just a small detail no one would notice, but the fact that puppeteers put that in, really, really amazing stuff right here. When Robbie asks what's wrong with that, Earl quivers in rage yet again before saying it's a school night and they have homework. Charlene says that's unreasonable, as Earl says life is unreasonable, and for them to do their homework. We then cut to the two of them doing homework as Robbie agrees, saying that schoolwork comes first. And in a really hilarious gag, it turns out that they basically are doing malicious compliance. They're doing their homework in the bar.
Yep.
So they're not technically breaking the rules, you know? It really, really is a funny moment right there.
Oh, absolutely.
The waiter comes by with their drinks, then tells them to put the books away as it's supposed to be an unclassy establishment, spitting on the floor to prove his point. Pearl sees them, asking if their highness let them out. Robbie says that he realized he was being selfish and unfair, and I love this. Pearl immediately recognizes that they snuck out. Like, she doesn't buy their story for a second because she knows Earl so well.
This is the part where I can actually understand why people don't get that Earl and Pearl are related. She seems actually intelligent.
Nice.
Yep.
Pearl says that she won't snitch and that she's glad to see them out there. Roy, Earl's neighbor, arrives and says that they should have a good reason for being there. Now, Roy is basically a parody of characters like Ed Norton or Barney Rubble, and he's a pretty good one. Like, his design really works out great too, with him being like such a laid-back T-Rex. I do like this exchange. They have the exchange of, you better have a good reason for being there. We do. Oh, okay. Sorry to be hard on you. Have fun. That's one of the funniest moments in the episode to me. It made me laugh so hard, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy isn't too noticeable in the Sinclair's life, but when he is, it's honestly pretty hilarious.
Pearl then begins flirting with Roy, as Roy finds himself muttering nonsense syllables. Obviously, Roy learned about dating advice from none other than Mr. Krabs. Come on, Mr. Krabs, say hello. Ooh!
Ooh.
Pearl then gets him on stage as Roy manages to introduce himself, only to find that, of course, she isn't there. Pearl then begins singing a song, and it's at this moment where the quality of the puppeteering on the Hensons really shines. Like, they just look so alive. It really is incredible. It's one of those things where they feel real. And this is like practical effects over CG any day, because they just feel so real. Like you could actually climb inside the television and be there, you know? It really is something else.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it just ultimately works. Like, not just the puppetry, but the people actually playing said characters are absolutely doing their best, especially here with Pearl doing the singing and the movements. Just everything about this is honestly a sight to behold.
Roy finds himself smitten with her as she sings. As the song ends and the Sinclairs cheer, Roy says that it was like she was singing right at him as she winks at him. We then come back to the Sinclair home, where Earl is usually ranting and raving about how Pearl does nothing but cause trouble, before Fran cuts him off, saying they don't know if Pearl told them to sneak out. Earl retorts how she caused the temptation to be there. Fran remarks that if she cheated on her diet because there's cake in the fridge, Earl would blame the cake. Earl, of course, misinterprets this and asks if there's cake in the fridge, as Fran basically lowers her head in a really hilarious way. Earl, Robbie, and Charlene arrive, as Earl then says, I never thought I'd say this, but the cake will have to wait. Robbie and Charlene say they'll have to be quiet not to wake their father, but Earl shows up busting them. Earl then rants about them going bar hopping, as Pearl says that they just wanted to listen to music. Earl then rants how that will lead to them living life on the road, meeting all kinds of scallywags and getting into scrapes. Robbie jokes that he wanted to go to college, but this sounds better, as Charlene wonders if the scallywags will instead be really cute boys. Earl says that Pearl has corrupted them as she asks them to lighten up. Earl then sarcastically remarks that things would be better if he was like Pearl, quote, sashaying into town, singing a few songs, and having a good time. Only for Robbie, Charlene, and Fran to all agree, which again, what happens next is Earl then says that Pearl turned his family against him, as Pearl says he did that to himself. Earl then storms off muttering. We then cut to the next day at work where Earl yells at Roy that he cannot be in love with Pearl. Roy says that he loves her because she's just like an old friend and seems so similar. Wink wink. Earl retorts that's just a romantic haze and that Pearl is going to drop him sooner rather than later. Roy says that she told me she'd settle down in song form too, which again, another line that got a good laugh out of me.
Yep.
Earl then says that she'll run out on him, as Roy says that he shouldn't have fallen in love with his sister. Earl basically retorts that she didn't walk on him, but on everybody else. Roy notes how Earl does the same thing with his nose that Pearl does, as he's obviously not listening, too smitten with Pearl. Earl then tells Roy to, quote, make the biggest mistake of your life. I love how Roy's reaction is, oh, thanks, Earl. I knew I could get your blessing.
Classic Earl.
It is the closest thing he's going to get, I guess.
Back to the Sinclair household, where Pearl is singing another song about how life is like, quote, when your ex is a big T-Rex. Baby sings along with her as she finishes the song. Charlene notes that Roy is a T-Rex, as Pearl then notes that Roy is sweet and wouldn't have it in him to throw her out. And Robbie jokes he doesn't have the arms to throw you out either. Another really good line there. Pearl then mentions that she's thinking of settling down and marrying Roy, and she's interested in seeing Earl's reaction to that. Robbie and Charlene point out how Earl has been acting, as Baby says that he wants Pearl to be his daddy instead of Earl. I do love how Pearl says, you mean that in a sweet way, and Baby's like, no, I don't. He's such a little shit, and you gotta love him, you know. Hence the song, I'm the baby, gotta love me, you know. That's where they got it from. Go ahead,
And
Shark.
again, Pearl just being Earl in a dress makes that joke even funnier.
Pearl then explains why Earl is the way he is. She mentions that her father died, and Earl had to take a job as a tree pusher to support the family. She left home to pursue her dream of being a singer, as well as date a rodeo clown named Buttons, but that's in the story for another day, according to her. Man, I want to see what a dinosaur rodeo clown would look like, you know?
Just hope it doesn't look anything like Joker.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh, I'm reminded of Joker's art. Oh my gosh. Imagine if she actually dated the precursor to Joker's art. That would be pretty.
Maybe it's more like a Mr. Patch from Banjo-Tooie.
Yeah.
That could also work. So anyway, what happens is Pearl adds that Earl never forgave her for running out on them like that. Charlene and Robbie want to know more about him, causing Pearl to talk about Earl some more. The pair cut her off, saying they instead want to learn more about Buttons, so apparently they just listened to what we had to say. We then cut to that night where Pearl is performing another song, and one thing to point out, one of the dinosaurs in the band looks eerily similar. I don't know if this is like a reused prop or whatever. It looks so similar to Mikey from the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie.
I mean, I rewatched this to see what you mean, but for the most part, he doesn't really look too much like Mikey. Like, I can somewhat see the resemblance. He's a turtle. So I think he would probably be like a prehistoric Ninja Turtle, but at the same time, looks a lot more wrinkly and a lot more different compared to Mikey. So I'd personally say that's a no. But if it was, they'd probably have to have done a lot of touch-ups just to make it different.
True. But if it was Mikey, it makes sense. He's the turtle that likes dinosaurs and so much.
And eels.
Nice.
That too, and eels. After the song, Pearl goes to Roy, saying that she had great inspiration for the song. Roy asks who was it, as Pearl thinks that she is joking. Roy says that this is the best week of my life, aside from Space Camp. And again, I want to see what Dinosaurs Space Camp looks like too. You know, we never got an episode with that. We never got episodes with dinosaur rodeo clowns. We never got with Dino Space Camp.
I feel like Family Guy actually answered this one. Dino Space Camp is just climbing up a tree and looking up at the stars.
So, Pearl then says that she'll give Space Camp a run for its money, as Roy says that is the most romantic thing he ever heard. He then leans in to kiss her, but then of course we get to the moment of the episode. He sees Earl kissing him instead, and basically yelling at, "What's the matter? Ain't you gonna kiss me?" And it's like at that moment where you knew that they made Pearl look exactly like Earl for this moment. And it's one of those things where it's like, it really does work,
Yeah. Like it used to. Bro, Matt?
Not only that, they have full first person, you are inches away from Earl's mouth camera view. To which, on behalf of the entire audience, I would just like to give one long ugh.
Like, that scene was basically supposed to be a turnoff for Roy, but it also was unintentionally a turnoff for a lot of other people. That's kind of a problem with Pearl. Like, yeah, it's great that she's Earl's sister and that she looks like him, but yeah, she looks like him, and the similarities are way too on point and uncanny for that. Anyway, Shark.
It really works because, as we have pointed out before, the characters have not pointed out the obvious thing that this character really is just Earl with a wig, but nobody sees it until this point. Like, you as an audience member are just waiting for the moment where, at the very least, someone says, "Oh, wait a minute," and presto, it works really well in the context of this moment.
Definitely.
Roy is so weirded out by this that basically runs off on Pearl, causing her to basically be dejected. We then come back to the Sinclair household as Pearl arrives, saying goodbye to her brother. Earl says that he dumped Roy just as he said he loved her instead of settling down with him, just like she did with Buttons and everyone else that she dated. It seems that Roy dumped her, as Earl is shocked to hear this. Whether that's because Roy dumping her is insult or not is another to be said. But what happens is, Pearl says that she cannot stay and has to leave, as Earl yells how she does that with everyone, like with him and his mother, and basically their mother. And one thing to point out is the amount of character they get from these, characters, is really, really amazing,
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, yeah.
Like, this feels so realistic, and it's a plot line between two animatronic dinosaurs, and yet it feels just so real, you know? Pearl says that Earl has 3 kids and a good life, as Earl reveals that he got that because he didn't have to chase a dream. As he talks, Pearl realizes that Earl is jealous of her, as she suggests that Earl arrive with the kids at the bar the following night. We cut to all of them there, as I do love this moment where Robbie says, "We were so upset that you were such a drag and a killjoy, but now we understand why you're so bitter and narrow-minded." Upon realizing how it sounds, Charlene adds that, "At first we were angry with you, now we just pity you." I do love Earl's reaction to being upset at this. He just yells, "Well, it's about time."
Yeah, he'll take what he can.
Pearl then takes the stage, saying that she has written a new song and wants to perform with Earl by her side. Earl is shocked, as Fran tells him to do it, noting how he sings in the shower every morning. Charlene and Robbie try not to encourage him as he goes up. Charlene covers her eyes as Robbie basically leaps behind the bar in fear. We then get the song, which is a really, really nice moment. It's a nice closeout to the episode. It's just about how Pearl is like a leaf wanting to be a tree, but Earl is a tree wanting to be a leaf. Obviously, we didn't get the full song because Fluttershy should have had a verse, because as we all know, she'd like to be a tree.
Nice.
One thing I will say is that it's a very good song with its message in that, and of course what happens is Earl turns out to have a good singing voice, startling both Charlene and Robbie.
Even if it's not as up to snuff as the Pearls is, he still got it.
The song ends with them singing how, if they cannot be together, they should at least remember that they are a part of each other no matter what, as the episode ends. But that's not the end of everything, because during the credits, you get another song reprised from none other than Pearl, with some more new added footage to it. It was really nice to see, they did that. That is playing it over a screenshot of a scene or something like that. They actually made a new segment for it. It's really, really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love when the shows do that. Have those special little credits moments where they have a snippet for a singing character or something else. It ultimately works. Like, it's one of those cute little touches that make a show feel a lot more charming.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And like I say, a really, really great episode as a whole of a great, great show. And yeah, Dinosaur lasting for 4 seasons was a big, big hit. Of course, it probably is today infamous for its finale, because it ends with the dinosaurs basically causing their own extinction for being short-sighted and greedy, with a whole global warming analogy that still hits to this day. Let's say this way. Things have not improved since the 90s on that front for the most part, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I say, I think what it was is just the fact that they had the nerve and the guts to end it with so definitively, like, oh, these characters you all loved and appreciated that, they're dead, they're gone, it's over, But it really does work. It really, really does work, for what the story they were trying to tell. I feel it really does fit. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead, Shark.
and imagine his reaction when they tell him that, oops, that episode, we read it early, we can air more and sell them as lost episodes, and yeah, it's like, guys, I killed them for a reason.
Yeah. And that's apparently what Brian Henson said. He knew that they had to end it like that. He knew they had to end it like that just because to make the point clear, that they always intended for it to end sort of like that. And yeah, it really does work out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, Dinosaurs as a whole, really, really great show. We have many more episodes planned because we can do a Monica, their neighbor, and maybe a few other female dinosaurs on the course of the show, rather. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really, really am. Because it's a fun show to talk about. Everything about it oozes just pure love. It's clearly labor of love. It looks amazing. The writing has not aged today. The animatronics sure as hell has not aged today. It is almost a perfect show. It's a show that really gets slept on. I feel like if people remember it, they remember it like, oh, remember that stupid puppet dinosaur sitcom? And it's like, I feel like people really have to give it a little more respect,
Yeah, I definitely have to agree that this show has held up a lot more in many aspects. We definitely hit a gold vein with this. It's not as prolific as something like, say, Dinosaur Train. Oh, good lordy, we are not going to run out with Dinosaur Train anytime soon. But something like Dinosaurs, it's one of those things that got slept on back in the day. But really looking back, it definitely does hold its own weight. It has messages and stuff that were important then, but are just as important now, if not even more so, dare I say. And it's one of those shows that I won't rewatch it as often, but it's definitely one of those shows that I'll hold fondly for very important reasons. Anyways, Math.
Since the majority of the writers for this show came from The Simpsons, I'm going to retrofit a Simpsons joke into this. He who is tired of dinosaurs is tired of life.
Yes!
Yep, that is the perfect way to put it. But that's also going to lead to the question of the week, which is, what are your favorite Muppet moments or memories? By Muppets, when it's something like the Muppet Show or Sesame Street, like original concepts, right, that Jim Henson worked on, like, so, for example, the Fraggles, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, The Storyteller, those all can fit in the thing for your favorite Muppet moments and memories. My answer is going to be one that is really, really obvious, is because I grew up not with the original Muppet Show. I had a couple of tapes of it, but I grew up watching over and over again Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island. These two movies are back-to-back, are probably the best Muppet movies in my opinion. No offense to the other ones, like Muppet Movie is great Muppet Caper is great, Muppet Takes Manhattan is great, but man, it's just something about Muppets Christmas Carol and Muppets Treasure Island. It is such a good duology of movies. It makes me wonder, why didn't they do more literary adaptations? I always felt they should have done Muppets Around the World in 80 Days. It's so obvious,
They didn't already do that? I thought they did.
Nope, never did. Not with the Muppets.
That sucks.
Disney did that on House of Mouse, but yeah, it's a real missed opportunity because it is such a great duology of movies, Aside from that, probably the other thing I remember of Henson mostly is I had Labyrinth as a kid, and that was a movie that I watched a lot more than I probably not obsessed with it like I was with the other Muppet movies, but it's a movie that definitely captivates you because it's one that's just like really, really interesting. It's like Jim making his own fantasy world. Same with Dark Crystal, and it really sucks they both underperformed because sadly I think both of their failures also caused Jim to kind of overwork himself, unfortunately, which. Very sad, but regardless, they are great movies as well, and I highly recommend them. Another underrated Muppet thing is Muppet Family Christmas, which is really, really awesome. It's Muppets, it's Sesame Street, it's Fraggle Rock, all together in like a 90-minute TV special. It is so well made, and it is such a love letter to these great characters that Jim Henson made. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's got some really, really great songs. The moment where Jim himself appears at the end always gets me a little teary-eyed, and it is such a great, great, great little special right there. And more people definitely should watch it in the future because, man, it still holds up. It is not aged a day like the other ones.
Yeah.
I feel that what works best with those two movies that you mentioned at the start is kind of weirdly the exact opposite for each other. The reason that Christmas Carol works so well is because Michael Caine took the movie completely straight-faced seriously and was treating the Muppets as if they were real people and acting across them as if they were alive. Meanwhile, Muppet Treasure Island worked so well because Tim Curry thought, I'm going to be more of a cartoon than the Muppets.
There was a video Markiplier of all people reacted to that had ending to the Muppet Family Christmas thing. It's like showing the credits and then out of the blue, like you remember those little vocal adverts for movies and like products and whatnot that they did in that era, like during the credits after shows? Mm-hmm. Well, apparently, honest to God, during the credits, they talked about an advert about what I can only assume to be abortion. And good lordy, it was such a total whiplash.
Yeah, like talking is more about Muppet Family Christmas Special. It's like, yeah, they bring all the characters these guys work on together, and I can just imagine like a kid or a fan in general just seeing this. And sure, they have interacted in a few times in a few shows, but just seeing everything this guy has made together, it must have been like felt amazing to whoever saw it at the time. Like, what was the Avengers now? Was the Christmas special was back then? Absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, easily. And let's be honest, it is better than the Avengers. Let's be real.
Yep.
Oh wait, there's a Muppets Avengers? Oh wait.
No, we were saying that Muppet Family Christmas is better than the Avengers.
Oh, ouch. That sucks, but that makes sense for the most part.
And also with Muppet Treasure Island, Tim Curry is the only man who I've seen upstages the Muppets.
That makes sense.
That's going to be my pick. It's going to be Muppet Treasure Island, Muppet Christmas Carol, and also basically the Muppet Family Christmas and also Labyrinth. Those are all my choices. Angron, what would your pick be?
There are quite a lot of memories I have about Henson's work, or the Henson Company in particular. Like, as you said, they definitely have a magic to them about making puppets feel lifelike, like they're actual characters. Farscape is definitely an example of this. Like, yeah, it's mostly a live action show, but it definitely does have some puppets on par with some of the Muppets and something like Dark Crystal or Labyrinth. Speaking of Labyrinth, yeah, I remember watching that film a lot when I was still in elementary/middle school. It was pretty great. Like, I honestly like it more than Dark Crystal. Like, yeah, Dark Crystal has more of a grounded story. It feels like this great adventure. Labyrinth is just a trippy psychedelic. It's basically psychedelic trippy fun times, and I am there for it a lot more. However, for something that really hits close to home, we go back to the late 90s and early 2000s, and in that way, I would like to give special mention to a special little show that was part of my childhood and just will not leave my brain. It lives there rent-free whenever I think about it. Bear in the Big Blue House. Yeah, I also grew up a bit with Between the Lions, which is also a great Henson show. But yeah, Bear in the Big Blue House, I grew up with a lot. Yeah, I had a pants patch for when I got a hole in my jeans at one point. I watched this show a lot. In fact, sometimes my mom, on a very specific day, references a specific scene from that show. And of all the times, it had to be my birthday. But yeah, I really 100% love that show. I also love Between the Lines. Diving into books, reading them. Like, yeah, I know Reading Rainbow is a little bit better when it comes to literary stuff, but good lordy, I think Between the Lines blew them out of the water with them just diving in and just screwing up all the books, like, for the most part. Hell, there's one episode from Between the Lions where they get stuck in a book and the mouse robot character is powered down. So basically, they're all stuck in there. in that book. No resolution whatsoever. They're just straight up stranded in there. I think it was like the Titanic, if I recall correctly. That's kind of messed up. Like, crazy messed up. But yeah. For my memories, I'm definitely gonna go with Between the Lions and Bear in the Big Blue House.
Nice.
I don't know if Henson actually really worked on Between the Lions, but it definitely seems like him, you know?
Yeah. Like I said, you thought Dinosaurs still holds the monopoly of being one of the darkest, most twisted shows imaginable, but that moment in Between the Lions, just good lordy, man. How they got out in the end, I don't know, but that is messed up.
But definitely, like I say, a great choice right there. Both of them really, really good shows, and like I say, it really shows how much love and care Henson put for these kind of things, you know? And we're the Henson group too, you know? Because we talk Henson like Jim, but his family pretty much kept the tradition alive, and it really, really is so great right there. Let's see, Shark, what would your pick be?
Usually, yeah, like I said, the holiday special with all the characters together, definitely, like you said, it's heartwarming, it's fun, it has everything, it's literally a love letter to the guy, it's a great story and all. But well, you kind of already covered it in full detail, so another one I mentioned is a more, I won't say obscure, but not so much the first Muppet thing you will think when talking about the Muppets, and that's in Disneyland. There's this 4D show of the Muppets, and it's a really fun time. Like the effects, the typical like at one point they blow bubbles, so bubbles come out. At one point, Kermit makes the lavatory explode, so everything shakes, and it's a fun time. And yeah. Honestly, most of my answer was going to be the holiday special, but that was kind of covered all well. So yeah, it's gonna be a short answer for me now.
Indeed.
I never actually got to Disney World to see it, but man, it is such a great, well-made show. It's actually, I think, was the last thing Jim worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So Disney were moving it all the sadder. They're replacing it with like a Monsters Inc. Roller coaster, and I love Monsters Inc. Like, no one loves Monsters Inc. more than I do, but man, you had to get rid of this. You couldn't have gotten rid of like some of the other things in Disney Hollywood Studios. You had to get rid of like the Muppets. They are revamping the Rock and Roll roller coaster to be the Electric Mayhem rather than Aerosmith, so that's cool. But at the same time, it's kind of sad they got rid of like their big 3D show, you know?
Yeah. Still.
Anyway, let's see. Matt, what would your pick be for your favorite Muppet moments and memories?
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I will continue to shill for Dark Crystal until they fucking do something with it. Back in 2019, when they started the Netflix series and then did a game and a comic book run and all that kind of stuff, and then nothing. It literally died just all at once. Everything just went kaput. It's so infuriating too, because it was such a good show, and it looked like this was finally Dark Crystal's comeback and was going to be in popular media again. This really deserves to be as well. It may not have been the big mega financial success during its initial run back in the 80s. It was such a good movie, and it showed that, you don't need to just do kid stuff with puppetry. You can actually do anything with it. They made a dark fantasy with nothing but puppets, and it looked incredible. Particularly the Skeksis. The Skeksis are still some of the most disturbing looking villains in any media, anywhere. And this stuff really needs to be brought back. And it's a damn shame that it died on the vine when it was just starting to grow.
For the movie as well. But honestly, Labyrinth does a bit more for me. Like, yeah, it's not exactly kid stuff either, but honestly, it's a lot more wild, and good lordy, the length they go to with the puppets. Like, there's a scene where one guy literally takes out their eyeballs, and it's pretty twisted, even for something made by Henson. Also, David Bowie absolutely sells it. May he rest in peace. The absolute legend.
Dark Crystal is definitely the darkest thing Jim worked on. Like, the scene of the guy literally being melted by the Skeksis, it is so creepy.
Oh, goodness.
You know?
And yeah, I don't blame anyone for preferring Labyrinth over Dark Crystal, because Labyrinth had that more kind of goofy tone that you would expect from a Henson production. I prefer Dark Crystal because it was so different. It was so unique. We've really never seen anything like Dark Crystal since Dark Crystal itself. It's the only time that anything has ever been attempted with that. Unfortunately, we are seeing numbers monetarily at box office and viewership with the Netflix series.
But that's going to be it for the question of the week. Now it's time for the patent-pending Dragoness Scale, where you rank the Dragoness. This one's going to be Pearl Sinclair, and it's going to be interesting because design-wise, has been pretty much beaten into the ground by now. She is just Earl in drag. That is literally the character design. But that being said, it's still a really great design, and the personality is so good. Like, she feels like a real person. All of them do. But it really just shows how good the writing of the show is, that a one-off character for this show, better plot line and better backstory than 90% of people in other shows these days. So with that being said, I have got to give her none other than, probably higher than she deserves. I'm going to give her I wasn't going to give her an 8, but think about it, I'm probably going to give her a 7 out of 10. With that being said, really, really great design, great everything. She is the voice is great, the character is great, the personalization is great. The design kind of knocks it down a few points, but for what they're trying to do with her, it works. That's the point, is that she's literally just Earl, but female. That's the entire point. And for what they're trying to do, it works.
Yeah, I'm also going to give her a 7 out of 10. Yeah, like you said, her personality shines through. Like, the voice absolutely does great things for her. She also has one of the best singing voices I've heard on a show. But yeah, the fact that it's basically just Earl and drag kind of drags it down. Like, even the show acknowledges it, which I give it props for doing. But yeah, like, it doesn't really do her score any justice. But what we got with her in the show as a whole, how she and Earl play off each other, or at the very least interact with each other, it definitely makes her a pretty sympathetic character, even though she does have her faults in spite of all that. So it is for this very reason I'm also going to give her a 7 out of 10.
Okay, all good. I definitely see what you're saying. And like I say, the fact that she's Earl and drags her down. Nick, nick, nick. Waka, waka, waka. You beat me to it, Math. So what would your score be, Math?
I'm slightly higher than you guys at an 8. So the what saves this is the animatronic work. It is amazing. It's a Henson production. They are above and beyond anybody else that has ever worked in the puppetry field. So the character looks great, and the writing is fantastic. These are early 90s Simpsons writers who wanted to be even more wild and creative, and oh boy, does it show. They have a really great talent of making these one-off side characters so detailed and just fleshed out in ways that almost no other show was able to do. What brings it down to an 8, as has been said, is it's Earl in drag, and I don't care how good the puppetry is. I don't care how impressive the visuals are. I don't care how amazing it looks to see this in motion. It's Earl in drag, and all I can do is ugh.
With a 7, because as everyone has pointed out, it's Earl with a wig. Well, not even a wig, just in drag. And okay, they actually made it work well. Like, they got what they had. Like I mentioned before, the whole bit that absolutely no one points it out is like you think it's like the producers being like, oh, maybe if nobody noticed, the audience will notice. But no, it's that because they were saving it for the moment when the idiot character was like, hey, wait a minute, something's fishy here. And the puppetry is great. She has an interesting backstory, and the episode really works a lot well with her interaction with his identical-looking brother. So there's character. There is a lot of character in this character, and even though they reused the same animatronic for the character, they actually made a clever joke out of it. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
Wow, like I said, we were really consistent this week. Pretty much almost all the same score, except for Math giving one higher. And I am so looking forward to Dinosaur because, again, we have so many other characters to talk about. Probably not as much as Dinosaur Train or Dinosaur Rescue Riders, With that being said, this is a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm going to bring it up any chance we can because this show is so much fun, really, to talk about as a whole. So that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or if you want to see what the Sinclair family would have done at the Muppet Family Christmas, you can feel free to email us at FieryDiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/FieryDiscourse. Visit us at Blue Sky @BlueSkyFieryDiscourse. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Any comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is trying to move to the group home in the UK. That will also be in the description. Any help for that will be appreciated. Next week, we're going to be looking at something a little more recent, but I say that in quotes because we're going to be talking about the 2004 Powerpuff Girls episode, That's Not My Baby.
Yeah.
This is from the final season of Powerpuff Girls, but it's still a really funny episode. It's got a lot of fun moments, and definitely looking forward to it. And probably can guess what the question of the week for that one's going to be. Wink, wink. But yeah, that's going to be it for this week. And until then, thank you all so much for watching, and take care.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.
Adios. See you all next week.